Last year, nearly 700,000 people packed up their lives and left the United Kingdom. 3/4 of them were under 35. They didn't flee a war zone, and they weren't escaping a currency collapse. They were highly skilled young professionals walking away from their own country. Citizens generally do not abandon a G7 nation. For centuries, Britain has been one of the richest countries on the planet and a central hub of the global economy. The expectation is that a country with this much historical wealth naturally provides opportunity for its youth. But the appearance of wealth in Britain right now is largely an illusion. A stagnant economy has masked its deterioration by relying almost entirely on a hyperinflated housing market. On paper, older homeowners look incredibly rich, but the productive engine of the country is failing. This bar chart compares UK worker productivity against its international peers. The data shows the average American worker is now 28% more productive than a British worker. Even French and German workers are outperforming the UK by 14%. Consequently, Britain is the only G7 country where real household income remains below pre-pandemic levels. This stagnation has lasted 17 years, leaving Britain caught inside 3 distinct, overlapping structural failures. To find the exact moment Britain strayed from its peers, we have to rewind to 2008. Every major economy took a massive hit during the global financial crisis. The divergence happened because of how the UK government decided to respond when the dust settled. Faced with a struggling economy, the government chose austerity. Instead of taking out loans to buy better equipment or invest in future growth, they decided to slash the budget. They cut funding for infrastructure projects, research and development, and adult education programs. Deprived of investment, the thousands of mid-sized, highly specialized manufacturers that used to drive regional wealth were sold off, broken up, or left to rust. The entire national economy became dangerously dependent on financial services isolated inside London. By cutting the precise programs that give workers the skills to be productive, Britain starved its own economic engine. This chronic underinvestment formed the rigid foundation of our model, layer 1 of the trap. Just as the country was trying to find its footing after years of budget cuts, the 2016 Brexit referendum arrived. This introduced a massive, self-inflicted shock right on top of a system that was already fractured. This line graph tracks UK business investment. Before the referendum, investment was growing steadily at around 6%. But with no clear plan for trade after leaving the EU, businesses panicked. The morning after the vote, growth instantly collapsed to zero. No company is going to spend £50 million expanding a factory when they don't know the future trade laws. That hesitation caused quiet, compounding damage. Today, there is between 100 and 200 billion pounds missing from the British economy every single year, accompanied by severe labor shortages across agriculture, construction, and healthcare. Politicians prioritize the rhetoric of economic nationalism over the hard work of transition planning. That failure punished domestic businesses right when they needed to adapt, locking layer 2 firmly into place. The final layer of the trap rests in the housing market. For decades, UK policy has favored property as an investment asset for retirees over its function as affordable shelter for the workforce. The math for young people is entirely broken. Average homes now cost anywhere from 10 to 25 times an annual salary. With homeownership mathematically out of reach, young renters are forced to hand over their stagnant wages simply to fund the retirement portfolios of their landlords. Then the global crises hit. State borrowing surged to keep the country afloat during COVID, and the Ukraine war sent energy bills skyrocketing. Suddenly, an already fragile system was carrying an additional £500 billion of national debt, right as interest rates spiked to fight inflation. To pay for all this, the government is using a stunt mechanism called fiscal drag. As inflation slightly bumps up wages, the tax thresholds remain frozen. Workers get pushed into higher tax brackets without gaining any actual purchasing power, leaving some facing effective marginal tax rates over 60%. Starved of proper funding, public services are buckling. The National Health Service currently has 7.3 million people on its waiting list. 1 in 11 people in the UK are waiting for medical treatment. This flowchart maps out a mechanical doom loop. Sick workers drop out of the labor force, shrinking the tax base. This means less funding for the NHS, creating longer wait times and more sick workers. These 3 layers, austerity, trade friction, and housing inequality, fueled by that doom loop, have created a closed system. The UK is currently paying over £100 billion a year in debt interest. They cannot borrow, tax, or cut their way out of this trap. The solutions to these problems are not a mystery. Every serious economist agrees the country needs to build more homes to stabilize prices and commit to long-term infrastructure spending. So why has the political system failed to execute these obvious fixes for 17 straight years? The flaw is structural. A standard 5-year election cycle actively punishes politicians for long-term thinking. An infrastructure project takes a decade to pay off. If a politician spends the money today, they take the immediate financial hit, while a rival party gets to cut the ribbon and claim the credit years later. Meanwhile, policies that drain the economy, like the guaranteed triple lock tension and artificially high property prices, remain untouchable. Older demographics turn out to vote at roughly double the rate of citizens under 35. Any politician who threatens the paper wealth of that voting bloc guarantees their own defeat. Electoral math dictates this outcome. By protecting the assets of its most reliable voters, the political system effectively chooses short-term stability over long-term national growth. Put yourself in the shoes of a highly skilled, highly taxed 25-year-old. You are looking at a system mathematically rigged against your ability to build wealth. The rational response isn't to work harder. The rational response is to leave. And that is exactly what the data shows. Ambitious young people are migrating to the UAE, Australia, and Spain for fair tax treatment and a chance at homeownership. As they leave, the domestic tax base shrinks, the burden gets heavier, and life becomes objectively harder for everyone left behind. This crisis extends far beyond British borders. The UK is simply 10 years ahead on a timeline that the US, Canada, and Australia are already traveling down. America is currently facing its own housing shortages, aging demographics, and a $39 trillion national debt requiring massive interest payments. Britain ran the experiment so other nations wouldn't have to. If a country's political system prioritizes short-term asset protection over long-term investment, the economic engine will stall, and the people you need to build the future will simply pack their bags and find it